Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode here on Tales from the Wandering Scribe. I am your host, Gabriel Garcia, otherwise known as the Wandering Quill and the Wandering Scribe, and welcome to another interview here on the channel. Now, my guest today is a proud mom with a full-time career, and beyond her professional life, she is an avid reader with a particular passion for fantasy and romancy novels. In her spare time, she indulges in the world of literature, sharing her thoughts and insights through book reviews. And her journey is a balancing act between the responsibilities of motherhood and the demands of her job and the joy found within the pages of a good book. And if you follow this guest on Instagram, then you know that she gives excellent and really thought provoking reviews on Instagram. And to tell us more about that and anything else she may have in the works, let's give a huge round of applause to today's guest, Megan. Megan, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. So before we dive into the nitty gritty, is there anything else you'd like to add about your background as a book reviewer, book blogger, anything in particular?
No, I'm fairly new. I only started doing the Instagram November of last year, so I'm fairly new to it all. Have not been doing it very long yet, but it's been very exciting so far.
All right, so let's dive into that with our first question. So, in your bio, you sent me that you really love fantasy and romancy novels and really love giving insights, of course, later on. So, when did that spark come about that you want to be a book blogger and book reviewer for Bookstagram on Instagram, if that's the term that I've been hearing? So, how did that all come about?
So just not to make it like sad, but my sister passed away in 2021,
Ah,
and I've always been an avid reader, and just healing from all of that, um, and becoming a new mom because my kids that I have are her kids, that me and my
ah.
husband took in. And so navigating all of that, like I needed something that was myself again, like something that was specific for me. And I've just always loved reading. And I would always search for books on Instagram myself when I was looking for something new to read. And I just decided that I wanted to do my own to help people that were doing the same thing as me, searching for books to be able to, maybe come across my page and
Right.
like the same books and use my reviews to make a decision with whether they want to read it or not.
Nice. Interesting. And speaking of reviews, and of course, being a books blogger and reviewer, when someone approaches you, actually, let me talk about that. How does one approach you for like if they're like an author on Instagram saying, I would really love your insight on my book? Do they usually approach you, or do you usually read a book that you find or referred to by a friend on Instagram, one of your followers?
So it's kind of a mixture of all. Sometimes I see authors that have signups because they're looking for people to read their book, and if I think it sounds interesting, I will fill out the form and apply to read the book. And I have had authors reach out to me to ask if I would be willing to read their book. Um, so far, any author that's ever reached out, I've always read their book and give them, my honest feedback. And I've made a lot of friends on Instagram. And so sometimes they give me books recommendations that I read, and then sometimes I give them some. But I'm always open. If somebody wants to chat about a book or has a question, they can reach out. I love talking about books.
Nice. So now going more so into the career and passion of a book reviewer and a book blogger. So when someone either approaches you about their book they wanted to review, or you yourself are reading a book and providing a review, like how do you approach it? Like if you read it, and are you critical? Are you specific depending on what the author is looking for? Or how do you go about being a professional reviewer blogger?
So I like to try to pride myself on giving honest reviews. I mean, authors sometimes will give like some criteria, but really their criteria isn't about what you write in your review. Like they may say, that not every book is for everybody. So if you don't like it, maybe wait a couple of weeks to post your review, until the book has been released. Or if it's newly released, give it like 3 weeks of it being out before you post your review. So I respect that when,
Right.
the authors ask that. But I always give my honest feedback. I mean, there has been some books that I haven't liked, and I've been honest, with the authors that it just wasn't for me.
All right. And so would you say that's also kind of like your promise you're making to the author, that you're going to be honest, you're going to be critical, but above all, you're going to be fair in your review?
Yes.
Nice. I think that's also very important for any new author trying to look for people to like review, and like thinking like, how am I going to approach this? Because I myself, in that perspective, always looking for people who's going to be reviewing or sending out my books for people to review. But I definitely feel that from an author's perspective, we don't really take consideration of the people who might be reviewing it, who may not be in the same genre that they're interested in reading. But on the off chance, even someone who's not interested in that genre could still find enjoyment from the book. And I'm wondering, for you, Megan, has that ever happened with any of the books that you read, that they were not your preferred genre or subgenre of fantasy or romance, but you did find enjoyment from it?
Oh yeah, there's somebody that I met recently on Instagram that she wrote a book that was kind of like it hasn't been published yet, but it's kind of like a journey of like the trauma that people have been through, like how she overcame it, type book, which is completely different than fantasy or any of that stuff. It's kind of like an audio biography for her, somewhat,
Mm.
to help people, heal, and to give people a different perspective of like trauma that other people have been through. And I read that, and I loved it. I mean, I do read those types of books sometimes. Like I don't just read fantasy, but that wasn't a type that I've read in a long time, and I absolutely loved it.
Nice. And interactions with the authors whose books you've read, how have those interactions been? Have they been like positive, mixed? What was the overall feedback when you went into this profession of being a books blogger and a reviewer? And do you remember the first book you ever gave a review for on this journey?
Oh, the first, I would have to go back and look. I actually don't remember what I can't think of the name. Um I actually don't remember. I've read a lot of books, and I don't always post all of them. Like last year I did 300 books, and today I've already done, or as of today I've already read like 106 this year. So I for sure have not posted all of them, but actually not even half of them I've posted, but I don't remember what my first one was.
Wow. Oh my gosh. That's a lot more books than I've honestly read in my time. I don't think I've read that much, but man, I don't even know how you would find time to, plan them out, and like it's like space out, I'm gonna read this book for a certain amount of time. I'm gonna read this book a certain amount of time. And another question I do want to ask you: when an author approaches you to like review their book, are there criteria for yourself of like, these are the books that I'm willing to give reviews for, and these are some books that, depending on the genre, the context, and whatever they have in terms of themes, are the books that I will not be giving you reviews for? Do you have almost like a business model for that?
I do not. I'm open to really reading anything. I don't have any particular type that I would not read, I don't think. So I no, I don't have any criteria.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. I always feel need to ask that question because I think it is like important, like for like authors who reach out to like do like a swap, like review swap. It's like, I'll read your book if you read mine. but you always have to be mindful of, the subject genre that may have, the content and the themes. They may be too mature or graphic in nature that you may not feel comfortable in reading. So it's always mindful, as I've been told, to really understand, what books you feel comfortable with reading. The book could be fantastic, the book could be great, but you always have to be mindful of what are the context, like the warnings, the triggers. That's the word I would think of, the
Triggers, yes,
triggers.
the trigger warnings, yes.
And just be mindful of this has this, this has this, this has this. And if you're comfortable with that, just know that in mind. And now, kind of leading into another question. So, do you feel that your promise when you review books for authors and you review books on your site has been validated from like the responses? I know it maybe seemed like the previous question, but it's like there's a sense like validation in your promise from the feedback. It's like, oh, thank you so and so for this amazing review, because I know authors really love to showcase and highlight the reviews because reviews help market the book.
Right. I have had a couple of my followers reach out to me, like when I've posted, a review of a book, and like there was one of my friends that she commented on it and she was like, I've been waiting for you to review this one, so I could decide if I actually want to read it or not. And she said that she always waits, well, not always, but most, that she does wait for my reviews. So I've
Nice.
gotten that feedback, and I've had authors, say thank you for the reviews and that they love the reviews.
That's actually really good. It's nice to have that connection because, again, as I said, authors love connecting. We love connecting with people and spreading the word about our books because as authors, we have this intense feeling of imposter syndrome, trying to get into an industry where there are giants in the field, in the genres, and whether or not are we going to make a difference. And I don't know if from you, Megan, you may have had those thoughts of imposter syndrome in the sense of being almost like a professional book reviewer or book blogger, because there's a lot. And I'm wondering if you've ever had those thoughts of imposter syndrome, and if not, what has disciplined you to continue reading, to continue providing honest feedback because you love reading stories and you love providing honest feedback to not only help grow your own brand as a books blogger and book reviewer, but to also help the authors who have sent you their books and just to help them as well?
That was a long question.
I
I'm
know.
trying to piece it together.
Okay.
Um,
I'll probably break it into two parts, which I should have done. So I'll start with the first part. Have you ever had a sense of imposter syndrome in a sense of there are a lot of professional reviewers who have honed their craft and like, approaching different books, writing a certain way, depending on the author and the genre. Has those thoughts ever come into your mind as a book reviewer and a book blogger?
oh yeah, probably on a daily basis, if I'm being honest, because there's, some book bloggers that I've been watching and following for, a long time. And then I look at their page and I look at my page, and sometimes I wonder if I'm doing a good job, because some people have like thousands of followers. And but then I sit back and I think, I'm like, really, I'm just here to, um, for me, the followers don't, I mean, sometimes I think that they do count, but then I sit back and I remember like why I did it. It was just for fun. It was something that I could do for myself that was mine, and just have fun with it and make some connections with people.
Right. And kind of like the follow up to that, what has disciplined you to continue reading, to continue to expand your genre of fantasy, romancy, and the other subgenres, and just continue providing honest feedback, fair feedback to not only your followers, but also to the authors whose works you've read?
Really, it's just, for me, it's just enjoyment. It's my hobby. I love doing it. I love making, one thing that I've learned that I really enjoy with this is working with the indie authors and helping them promote their books. And those are the connections that I've really enjoyed, is working with them.
Definitely, 100%. And now going into more of the business side, which I'm really curious to hear your thoughts on, Megan. So, when you started this journey of yours last year, were there any people that you reached out to like help you format, your stance, your business plan as a books blogger and a books reviewer? And if so, who were those people that have really helped you grow and continue to grow in this business?
So I didn't have anybody, I guess, necessarily like help me with the business. Like I just had an idea. And if you go back to the beginning of my page, it was kind of chaotic until I found, my rhythm and what I liked, and had, like set posts that I used, that created. Um, I have met people that have, friends that have encouraged me to do, like doing this interview. I reached out to one of my friends on there and I was like, hey, what do you think of this? Like, should I do it? And, she gave me her feedback and she's like, yeah, I think it would, be great. And, some of us, like the friends that I've made, we've encouraged each other to like branch out and,
Mm-hmm.
do different things. So I've had that, but as far as like my page, that was, I guess, all me.
Okay, so a lot of like trial and error, I'm assuming. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that kind of leads into like the follow-up question. So when you began researching, what were sort of like the things that you found were like similar across all research? Like what were like the core things that your research told you that if you want to be a book reviewer or a blogger on social media, what were like the key things that you needed to have?
Just good images, like having something that's aesthetically pleasing to people, because when somebody comes to a page, they want to see something that is just aesthetically pleasing. And so like with my reviews, I wanted everything, because sometimes, people will post a picture of a book and then
Right.
you have to go into the bottom section of the post to, read their thoughts on it. And I wanted everything to be up front in people's faces. So my reviews are
Ah.
straight the book image, and then I have my review, like what my rating was of it, and then kind of like different tropes from the book. And then the next page that I have is the synopsis of the book. So if somebody thinks that they're like, oh, I like this review, what is this book fully about? Then they can go to the next slide and see the synopsis of the book. So I wanted it to be upfront in people's faces, I guess.
Okay, nice. And that kind of leads into the next two business questions. So, as you probably said before, a lot of your followers have probably been like suggesting books like, oh, read this. Oh, you would love this. How do you balance it out to where it's not overwhelming and like categorize it? Because I know you said earlier in the beginning when you write reviews, you are in touch with the author in some review cases where you will hold off a review until they say, I want you to post it on this date, or I want you to post it when I make this announcement. So how do you balance it? Do you have like a spreadsheet, a document of some kind to organize everything?
So for the books that I do that are like the ARC reads, right? The advanced reader copies,
Mhm.
I do a spreadsheet for those so that way I could keep track of which ones I have. And then I kind of just do those in order that I received them. So
Oh,
whatever was
okay.
first is going to be at the top of the list. And then, um, the last one that I received, is at the bottom. And then I just read in order. But besides those, I'm really kind of a mood reader. So then if I'm not reading an ARC book, um, I just kind of go through and see what I find that day and what I'm in the
Oh,
mood for
okay.
reading.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. And now, regarding, I think you mentioned rating score, which I always found very interesting because I also have almost the same thing on my channel. I have my Wandering Quill book impressions, where I review like the first few chapters or the few pages to provide my own initial insight into the book, not the whole book entirely, because I can't read a 398 page book on YouTube. That would be almost an hour, if not several hours of reading, just a little insight. But from
Yes.
there, I provide like my own rating system between like 1 to 5. And a majority of the books I've had, I've been like 4.5, 4 to 5. I've never gone anything lower. But for you, Megan, when you're doing your grading and your rating, what, in your opinion, would classify as anything less than a 4? Or what is your rating scale?
So really, I'm actually pulling up a post because on my page I have kind of my reading scale, so that
Okay.
way the authors can kind of see it. So I mean, I could read. So I have posted a book on my page that I gave 3 stars, but I've decided that after I did that, I decided that on my actual page on Instagram, I'm not going to post anything under 4 stars. So it has to be 4 stars or above.
Oh, okay.
It. But so for like 3 star, I just wrote, I didn't fully enjoy this book. It was missing a lot of things for me. And that's, kind of
Right.
just simple, but for a 3 star. So it would just be, I don't know, maybe there wasn't a lot of plot or a lot of world building and there could have been more, that might be something that I would give a 3 star.
Right. I've actually had another author say the same thing, that they'll do book reviews, but out of courtesy, for the author, they won't post anything less than a 4, out of respect for the author. And they do provide feedback. I've gotten feedback from this author to like, what can I improve upon? And have you ever done that for any of your authors who you've read books for like the arc reads? Even if it's like 4 and above, have you still given them like little things to improve upon for like the next book in their series, or what to improve upon if they want to re-release this as a second edition?
Um, no, well, there's a couple of authors that I'm a part of, like some group chats for, like, say, their second book, and they will post in the group chat for kind of everybody's opinion. Like, what do you think about this being in the second book? And we kind of all give our feedback. But I haven't had like a one-on-one, I guess. Well, maybe
Right.
I'm trying to remember. Maybe I have with an author or two, actually, where they've asked specific questions, like what they
Right.
can improve upon. Yeah. Trying to remember. There's a lot of conversations on Instagram.
I believe it, and I 100% agree. And that kind of leads into like the last question of like the business side, which I think is really interesting. So, just like authors, we initially write our books for ourselves because we enjoy the story that we're creating. But we also have to be mindful of our audience that we're writing for. If it's like a general audience or a specific niche within the genre that we're writing for. And I'm wondering, Megan, if that's all the same for you whenever you approach your reviews. Do you write your reviews in a sense that I'm writing this review for someone like me to see this, or I'm writing this review for his or her author's perspective audience or their readers?
I'm writing it for the people that are looking at a book and trying to decide if they want to read it or not. I try not to give like any in the reviews any type of spoilers,
Mm,
but give like a sense of what the book is about. Um, but I'm writing it for the people really looking for if they're trying to decide to read a book or not.
definitely. And I think that question is always important because I feel that authors kind of don't really take the consideration like who their readership and their audience is. And I've talked with a lot of authors on this channel when they've said to read in the genre that you want to go into, find out what people like about so and so and so, like the books, like what common tropes do they have, what common themes do they have, and try to incorporate those um into your story. And it is very, very fascinating. And I love talking with people outside the author world and still in the book world, whether it's like a book coach, book reviewers, bloggers, because I love hearing their insight. Now, for you, Megan, this one's going to be a little tough one. What has probably been the most difficult book to read and probably the most difficult review to write? Because I would imagine you've read a lot of stories with a lot of complex characters, incredible world building, maybe intertwining narratives, more than one narrative. So I want to hear our thoughts on that. I'm a little curious.
There was, I can't think of the name of the book right now, but there was a book that I read that I kind of liked. Oh, was it the second or third one in the series? I liked the book and I went to the next book, and it just fell completely flat. And
Really?
I struggled with, because there's kind of like two main character male interest in the
Mm-hmm.
book, and both of them were horrible. Like they just, now I don't care about trigger warnings or anything like that, but just how both of them were written, like they both like were just so mean to the female main character and just treated her like
Mm.
so bad in the book. And I just hated it because I was like, I mean, I'm all for like people like fighting and arguing and, banter and stuff like that, but they just treated her so bad, like both of them. And even after reading the second book, I'm like, I don't like either of these characters. So I struggled with writing that review. Um, it was a hard one. I did write a review about it. I think on Goodreads and Amazon, but because I wanted to be honest about it, and if
Right.
authors read it, maybe it'll help her for the next one to kind of maybe write them a
Right.
little bit different. But I don't know. Some people might love it. I did not.
Okay. And kind of a tangent question of this, which I think is really interesting. Have you ever written a review that was the opposite of what people said about the book? And I ask this because I'm sure you've probably gone a lot of books and people's like, oh, this is the best book in the world. Like a lot of books are like hype up on Instagram. I'll give one example. I think it was like The Fourth Wing. I've seen like a lot. I've seen that book like plastered everywhere. And a lot of my authors have like referenced that book. And I tried to read like one page and like a Barnes and Noble. It's like, I'm sorry, I don't necessarily see it. And I'm wondering for you as a reviewer, has that also come up where your initial reaction and your response in your review was not the norm for a book or a series of books that people had like praise about?
So, speaking of that book, that's actually one of the ones that I think, and people, if they watch this, some of my followers might be really mad at me for this, but that was a book that I thought, now the author, she is great. I've read some of her books, and so I'm not trying to bash her, but The Fourth Wing, I did not like that book. I thought that it was way overhyped. I felt, just to get background why I didn't like it is I thought that the story was good. Like I liked the military aspect of it. I
Mm.
grew up with people in the military, so I did enjoy that. But what I didn't enjoy is that it was an adult fantasy, and I felt like the characters were written like teenagers, right? I'm 38 years old. So reading about two people who are like, I love you, but I can't be with you type thing. And that is like the whole book where they're like, I can't trust you. I can't be with you. I love you, but I can't be with you.
Oh, okay.
I just did not like that. And to me, it read more like a YA novel trying to be an adult fantasy and then throwing in adult themes in it, right? But the
Oh, okay.
characters themselves, to me, read like they were teenagers.
Interesting. And kind of like the opposite question, because I like this discussion, have you ever gotten a dark horse in your reviews, in the sense that there was a book that a lot of people said it was like either the worst or it was like poorly written or something like that, but for you, you found it to be like completely unexpected but still an enjoyable read, and it surprised you? I imagine there was like one book that must have surprised you or gave you a second thought.
Yeah, there was actually a book that I read in one of my book clubs, and it was actually a book that I suggest. It's not my book club, but a book club that I'm a part of, and I had
Right.
suggested it, and everybody read it. And online, it's, I think it has like average of like 3.5 stars, maybe like almost four, but I loved it. I thought it was and I think it's called Fortune Sworn. Fortune Sworn. I thought it was
I
an
think I've
amazing book.
seen that book.
Yes, I thought it was amazing. I absolutely loved the series, but everybody in the people in the book club, they did not like it as much as I did.
Wow. Well, as the saying goes, never judge a book by its cover. And there's
Exactly.
been numerous accounts of that. Like, I've even been surprised as well by some of the books that were not even in my genre, which almost had the same thing as you. Like, I've read books that were overhyped, and some books I've read that were underhyped. And it is really fascinating. And that, of course, comes from like the author and just skill with growing as like a writer, trying to gain readers and stuff like that. And so now, kind of leaning into another heavy hitter question. So I'm gonna try to word it as best I can. So for you, Megan, I would imagine when you started this journey, as you said, you wanted to have something that was yours and just have something fun, like something fun, something that you could enjoy. And it's grown from last year to now. And the question I'm going to give you, well, I'm going to give context to this question first before I give it to you. So on my channel, I had an author who wrote her seventh book, and I was under the impression that it was her first. And throughout the interview, she gave me a pearl of wisdom, which I think is very important for all authors to understand, is there's no guarantee that your debut novel is going to be the start of your legacy. But I've met authors who have been on different ends of that argument. I've had one author, Andy Peliquin, whose debut novel skyrocketed him and was able to allow him to write four more series and allow him to live off of his books. But on the off chance, you have a rise, a fall, and a rise and a fall again. And for you, Megan, starting off on this journey of yours, I would imagine, or maybe you may have some thoughts on people who may go also into this business or this industry, being a book reviewer. People think, oh, my first post of this huge book is going to get people to notice me. I'm going to have all the authors reach out to me to give me their books because they love my feedback. And I think that's the biggest lie that anyone in any industry can believe. And it is true, but you should also have realistic goals of what you want to do in this industry, as she's told me. And you should do this if you are passionate about it. So I guess my overall question, Megan, for you, like, what are your thoughts on that topic for people who want to be book reviewers, who want to be bloggers on social media, post books, like find like the books that are like the talk of the town, New York Times bestseller, on the reports, everything, like the hype, and they're just writing, not giving honest feedback, not giving like anything constructive. They're just writing to be a part of the hype train. It's not going to be their honest work. I was wondering, what were your thoughts on that?
So I think that everybody should be authentically themselves. And I think that you should join because it's something that you enjoy doing, that it's a passion. People may hit it big right away and have thousands of followers right away. But in my experience, it's it takes effort. You know, connecting with the people that you follow, like commenting on their stuff, them commenting on yours, it's you have to put yourself out there to um I guess get it, but I think that everybody should be authentically themselves. I know that there are probably some people that jump on that hype train where there's a popular book and they're trying to get recognized by agreeing um with people sometimes, and I think that it's best just to be honest. And I think that down the line it may take slower for you to gain recognition, but I think that you'll genuinely have people that enjoy your content and trust your content because you're honest.
Definitely, 100%. And also to add on to that, what are your goals long term with going into this business, into this field? Are you looking to be a book reviewer or a book blogger for money? Well, that's going to take a lot of time. It's going to be a lot of, you got a business, you got to plan out, you got to really establish who you are. And again, as you said, Megan, that takes time. That takes a lot of work, a lot of dedication. As one author said on my show recently, grit trumps talent, because you could be the best reviewer, you could be the most poetic prose writer, doesn't matter. You need to go through the fires and the flames. You need to go through some obstacles to grow yourself. And you're going to continuously go. You're going to continuously have setbacks. But if you're passionate about this or even any other industry, you're going to be successful because you went through that. And on the other side, are you being a reviewer or blogger just for fun? Because that's a different mindset. That's a different goal in mind. So if you understand your long-term goals, I think you'll definitely be fine. And then going back to what you said about being your most authentic self, and of course, going back even further in the interview, you just said making those connections you've had with authors and your followers. Who would you say have been your biggest supporters on this journey of yours?
um the first friend that I ever made, her name is Kate, and me and her became, I don't know, we've never met in person, but like instant best friends. And she has been my number one supporter in since the beginning, and she's just amazing. There's an author that, just to give a shout out to her, who I still get, it's weird, I get giddy every time she like likes my post, because I've like read her books before I started this, and like now she'll like almost like my post every day. And her name is Juno Hart, and she has just been amazing. I mean, there's so many people, but she's been amazing. Kate, there's this other girl who has a page, who I actually love her page because she's, a young person. And I just think that it's amazing that, somebody who's a teenager is putting themselves out there and starting, this journey and doing something that they're passionate about. Um, she's been awesome, and she shares my posts like every single day, and I do the same for her. Um, and then there's another new author that's coming out with a book who I've become instant friends with. Um, and her name's Kaylee. She's amazing. And her book is going to be amazing. And then I've had a few other people, but Kate was my first one. So
Nice.
she stands out the most.
Awesome. And I know the exact same feeling. When I started my journey as an author, my first friend I connected was a South African author called Kim Appelgren. And we have been best friends for now, it will be 6 years. We met virtually in 2018, and we've been best friends ever since. She's been my biggest cheerleader, hype man, reviewer, everything. And from there, it just snowballed into more people, more connections, and it's just incredible. But I will never forget the very first who've been with me since the beginning. I can definitely tell Megan that this person, the first person that you mentioned, holds a very special place in your heart, because she was the first person that really has in a sense, I will say, kind of like sense of validation, which kind of leads into like the second to last question of the interview, Megan, which is, have you ever gotten a sense of validation from other reviewers on Instagram or any other social media platform?
Yeah. Oh, yes.
Nice. Is there anyone in particular you would like to give a shout out to?
Oh God, there's so many of them. I try to give their Instagram handle, I guess, instead of their names, but and I don't even know if I'm saying her name right with how she has it on here.
Oh boy.
But Aisha X Reads. She's been a huge support. She's actually the one who told me that she sometimes waits for me to post a review
Oh, nice.
to decide if she wants to read. She's been another one. And then there's another one, Leslie. Her name's Leslie. I would have to look at Instagram to find her handle,
but definitely quite a few who have definitely strong connections with, I imagine.
yes. And some of them I even have plans to like Kate, I reached out to her. There's gonna be like a romantasy like book con like masquerade ball thing.
Yes.
That there's like a few of us that are going there together to meet
I've
up.
seen that. I've seen that on social media. Yes, listeners or viewers, yes, there is something happening in LA. I've been seeing it like nobody's business, but it's huge. If you want to look up more about that, definitely look it up on Instagram. There's a whole page dedicated to that. And now, Megan, we arrive at the final question, which I am really curious to hear your thoughts on this. You may have already answered this before, but what is your word of wisdom to anyone who wants to get into the business of being a book blogger, book reviewer on social media?
I think I did kind of answer this, but my advice is post what you want. You know, really, like if you're not enjoying it, it's going to be hard to like get out there and like do the post. So just
Right.
post what you want to post what you like, and just be, like I said before, authentically yourself.
100%. And that's a perfect way to like and to be your most authentic self. And I've always said that on the channel. Like if you're an author, historian, just be your authentic self, because no one's going to do your job better than you. No one's going to write your story better than you. No one knows you better than yourself. And with that, viewers and listeners, we now arrive at the end of this amazing interview. I want to give a huge thank you to Megan for coming on the show for the first time. Megan, thank you so much for coming on the show. And where can people find and engage with you if they want to be up to date with your latest reviews? And if they want to reach out to say, hey, I'm a self-published author and I would be very interested for you to read my book.
So you can reach me at I'm only on Instagram, but my Instagram handle is sunshine underscore and fantasy books. Or wait, I had that wrong. Sunshine underscore and underscore fantasy books. And my email, if you want to email me, it's the same thing, just minus the underscore sunshine and fantasy books at gmail.com.
All right. Now, I will link the Instagram handle down below. I urge you all to go and check out Megan's Instagram. When I saw it, I was blown away by not only the amount of books, but also the professionalism. I'm going to say that here and before this interview ends, the professionalism, the words, everything. It screamed to me someone who is already like honing their craft. And Megan, I'm like surprised that it's only been like less than like a year. Like I'm very impressed by the reviews you've given, the types of reviews, and just everything. And I wish you the very best going forward down this path.
Thank you so much for having me, and that makes me very happy to hear you say that. So thank you.
You're welcome, Megan. And until next time, viewers, this has been the Wandering Scribe and the Wandering Quill signing out. Make sure to like and subscribe and comment down below, and we'll see you again next time.